Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Software Plaza podcast. I'm Twain Taylor, editor at Software Plaza. And I have with me today two guests, actually. We've got Nils Karn, who's the co-founder and CEO of Mitigant. That's the company we're going to be speaking to today, Mitigant. Their website is mitigant.io, mitigant.io. And along with Nils, we've also got Thomas, who's the co-founder and advisor at Mitigant. So I'm quite excited to be talking to them today about what Mitigant does, which is about Kubernetes security broadly, but more specifically, they have a unique approach which they call cloud attack emulation. And that's what we're going to be covering today in our conversation. So I'm quite looking forward to it, and I hope you are as well. Let's get started. Hi, Nils. Hi, Thomas. Great to have you with us. Thanks for joining.
Hi, hello. Thanks for having us.
All
Yeah.
right. To get us started, I wanted to get to know you guys a bit. Tell us a bit about yourself and your background prior to Mitigant and what made you to co-found Mitigant.
Yeah, Thomas, you're older, but if it's okay, I start, okay?
Yeah,
So-
you start.
My background is actually like IT and IT project management. It's already long time ago. I worked with bigger companies. One of them was Shell in London and Hamburg. And back then, as a project manager, I always asked myself, how do you tackle complex problems in a good way that you understand what your customers' needs are? And that actually led me to design thinking. And that's something I researched at the Hasse-Plattner Institute, where I also met Isan and Kennedy, the two co-founders who are not in the call at the moment. And from there, the journey with Mitigant started. I will tell you about that later and hand over to Thomas now.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, my original background was physics, complex systems, and so on. And so I went into IT and IT security, and Kubernetes is a perfect example of a complex system with a lot of interactions. And then 10 years ago, I had another company, and we went into the cloud together with Google and all the others. And then quite immediately we saw containers and Kubernetes are going big, and we needed security. So nearly every question I asked the customers was, I don't know, or they gave the wrong answer. So I turned into Kubernetes security and then grew and have my trainings posted on GitHub, so you can have this, and this has kind of success story. And then the complexity even grow, and my customers actually are in critical infrastructure. So things where you actually don't want that they fail, and Kubernetes is slowly sneaking into critical systems like power grids, energy, but also transport and healthcare. And so we immediately saw that there must be done something, and my most advanced customers have called me in the early stages of their journey, but sometimes comes a customer, we are going into an audit, and can you audit my customer, but my cluster, but I'm not an auditor, so I just prepare them for audits. And sometimes they come to me back, the auditor did not find anything, this cannot be, so can you have a look into the clusters? And then immediately we go through it, and all the tools or the customer experiences more or less go directly into Mitigant, so that I can have the role of an advisor with all the experiences. So I know what the market is going. At the moment, we have a lot wave on digital sovereignty for reasons. So Kubernetes is the alternative to probably the only alternative to the public clouds. And we have a lot of mess there coming from the US at the moment. and this is going to be a very big story.
Yeah,
Okay. Wow.
so with what Thomas actually described, also Ken and Isan saw that there is a big gap between what companies are doing and what companies should do security-wise. Yeah, and from the beginning, that was the basis for Mitigant, what we wanted to tackle. And what we saw, and that's especially Kennedy's research, he basically researched in the realm of security chaos engineering. Yeah, which is derived from what you know from Netflix, Chaos Monkeys. Yeah, putting holes into system and see how they react. And to security, it's a little bit different because actually the faults are attacks. Yeah, so the mindset was transferred from chaos engineering to security chaos engineering. And what we do with that technique, we call it cloud attack emulation, is basically that we are doing ransomware or LLM jacking or AI data poisoning against the infrastructure. Yeah, and the customer has the very good view that he can see if the systems he has, if it is a Palo Alto or Carvis or whoever, is actually holding, yeah, and showing that somebody's happening. And from that idea to the product, it was still like 2.5 years, because as you can imagine, it's not like that you create a SaaS, and it's quite a complexity, but we managed that, and so far the feedback we have at the moment, we have especially a lot of telcos in our pipeline, because one of the things telcos will do in the next 3 years is move into the cloud, because they are going from 5G to 6G. And with 6G, you have so much data points and things to process to deliver a service to your customers that you have to use the cloud. Yeah?
Oh, very interesting combination there in story. From project management to physics, quite a combination.
It has to come together, like you have the knowledge, you have somebody to manage, yeah, and you still have the customers' challenges, which has to be addressed, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that variety is what makes you guys unique as a team. But yeah, we want to get into just what we touched on now, which is the gap between what companies should be doing and what they are doing. Tell us a bit more about that when it comes to Kubernetes security. What should companies be doing and what are they doing?
So personally, I'm a very big friend of DevSecOps, and our tool is supporting it. So if you look into the DevSecOps loop, which is an extension of the DevOps loop, you see there's a lot of demand for scanning, pen testing, and but also you have to prove that you have going through the entire feedback cycle, that you can really show your management, yes, we did something and it improved our security. So in this sense, Mitigant is unique, and effectively, if you name the techniques chaos engineering or chaos security engineering or security scanning or DevSecOps, it's very related. It's effectively a tool scanning for vulnerabilities, and if you go to a typical customer, in the first moment, you have to calm down the customer, because in the typical environment, we see 1,800 to 2,000 vulnerabilities, mostly configuration vulnerabilities. And this is a lot. And then we have to get a process that you get this number down, and Mitigant is a tool helping the customer to understand how they go down to a manageable number of security problems. So this is something which is now required by regulations in Europe, NIS2 and DORA, and anywhere on the planet in a similar way.
It's interesting that you mentioned this. Like, to Nils, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like, because Kubernetes as a scaling layer, we have also on different systems. Yeah, and then you have also to check the supporting systems, whether it's AWS, Azure, or an Ionos or an local Kubernetes system, and that has to somehow play together, right? You have to keep that also in mind, that that's even adding one layer more on complexity, but it has to be managed, right?
Yeah. It's interesting that Thomas mentioned about there being 2,000 vulnerabilities and many of them being misconfigurations. I was wondering if you could explain a bit more and give us some top examples of the most frequently, the most frequent misconfigurations that you see in a system.
So yes, in Kubernetes, so in clouds general, typically these are storage buckets like S3 buckets with kind of open connections. In Kubernetes, it's very often missing network policies, so the applications are not really isolated, and fishy role bindings that you cannot really look that we have a problem here that could be attached to the cluster admin or not, because there are so many tools. And we analyze this. On the other side, we also you also have always a problem what's going in the containers. So much too many details. Sometimes they deliver build environments in a container, and this can be managed in this way. So and I already have some additions in mind that we really can create attack path in our system from 3 minor vulnerabilities giving you access to the core of the system. But this is in the planning.
Well, interesting. That's quite a few you mentioned that, frequently found misconfiguration. I'm sure many people listening to this can even relate that you've seen some of these same ones in your stack, role bindings, container builds, and storage buckets, and misconfigured policies around them. So some great examples there. Another thing that Thomas touched on. Thomas, you wanted to say something more?
No, that's I can give you a lot of examples in the details if we have the time later.
All right. Yeah. Another thing that Thomas touched on, which I wanted to also dig a bit into, is regulations. And maybe Nils could talk a bit about that. Tell us some of the challenges related to regulations and compliance, specifically related to Kubernetes.
Yeah, so from the client side, I can tell you that it's always a challenge to put it in. Yeah, and the first thing some of the clients ask themselves, am I NIS, is it NIS 2 here in Europe eligible to me or not? Yeah, that's a question we, for instance, never answer and we can't answer. Yeah, but if the system can be compliant, and so that's something more easier to answer. And I give you, especially because NIS 2 is still a little bit in the making here in the laws with the different countries in Europe. But with DORA, because it's the Digital Organization Resilience Act, it immediately became to the power of law when it entered in January this year. And we have one customer with a banking license, and they have to honor DORA. Yeah, so every insurance, every bank has to honor DORA here in Europe. And for them, as a first start, what we do is they basically discuss with us at the moment the controls, yeah, the digital ones they want to see in the system, and then we do it like a A/B setup. We have the controls of DORA here, and we measure how much of the system is basically fulfilling these controls, yeah, and what points are not fulfilling the controls. Yeah, in Germany, we know that DORA will be a mix of the ISO 27001 and the so-called BAIT, so that's a banking IT standard. And this mix has to be then reported to the authority. Yeah, and we will create a report. Yeah, at the moment it's in the making with our customer, because we actually need the customers for that, and it has to be a co-designing process. Yeah, because yes, you can put in the standard like this, Yeah, but usually you can't really think of all the systems your customer has. And this customer has a system set up with an on-premise Kubernetes and also an Azure Kubernetes. So both systems are mixed. That has to be brought together in a view so that the overview is comprehensive and for the authorities. And I think in Germany it will be quarterly reported. So every quarter the CISO has to report that then to the authorities. And so far it's very manual. So I can tell you that our customer at the moment, it's between 1 and 2 weeks he spends per quarter and putting all this technical information together in the report. And
Wow.
that's quite something. And I sometimes hear the customers complaining about the standards, but for me, I have to say, if they honor the standards, at least they're a little bit more secure. Because security overall is a challenge for customers, because it's a high complexity. With a standard like DORA, at least you have to dig a bit deeper. You have to think about what's my security strategy. How do I want to have my systems resilient? And it is really better for the security overall. If I talk to our prospects from the Gulf regions, they say, "Wow, you're from Europe. You have so much laws. That's very good. You have all these compliance standards you have to honor. We really like that." Because for them it's like a quality check. We can deliver that to them, and with these standards, at least they feel that their systems are set up in a good way. Because this orientation is sometimes really hard. What is a good, well set up system? I think Thomas can talk for hours about that, right?
Neat. Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
Indeed,
Tom.
it's easier to work with customers who have already regulations because then they are aware of what's coming, and it's not so hard if you have customers in a critical environment which is somehow unique because it's the only system in Germany or something like that. Then you have to explore it, and then you have to convince the people of doing it. But if you're in financial area or in telco, you have a lot of experience and regulations, and makes work much easier, and they are quite easy to convince that this is definitely not a burden for them, but a relief if they can test everything automatically.
Wow, interesting. So, kind of defined the challenges fairly well. I wanted to segue talking about the solution to this. And from a bit of reading up on your website, I saw the term chaos. And obviously, chaos and security, you don't want to talk about them together all the time. But then, on this podcast, we've talked about chaos engineering quite a few times. If you look in the past episodes, a couple of companies covered chaos engineering. But seems like you follow some of those principles in your approach. Could you tell us a bit more about the approach you take and what's unique about it?
Happy to do so. We put it a bit back as I discussed with you, Dwayne, before, is sometimes the customer gets scared. Well, if you have a well-informed customer, like we talked to the Auto Scout group in Germany, they're over 10 years already in the cloud, and chaos engineering is something they really put to their heart because they want to have the uptime of the system. Then it's no problem. But usually chaos gives a little bit of confusion. And we call it cloud attack emulation.
Okay.
Gartner coined the term adversarial exposure validation.
Okay.
At the end, the principles of chaos engineering are in there. And the principle of chaos engineering is that you put some chaos into a system and see how it reacts. For us, the chaos is actually the hacker or the attack.
Yeah.
So we are executing, for instance, a ransomware attack. And
Okay.
we have different qualities of this ransomware attack. We have, for instance, a ransomware policy where we try to establish a user. Then the user tries to deactivate the database locking and takes over the database, and then we roll back. So we always clean up our mess. It's not that we basically attack and leave the environment in a vulnerable state. But as you can see, at least at the second step, when in this we call it discovery attack because it's not really very invasive attack. At the second step, when the database locking is deactivated, your systems on the other side and your SOC team should pick it up. If that is not the case, and we had one customer in Indonesia, a very big telco over there, they got ransomware last year. They have very good systems from Israel and America, but the complexity of the system, you can miss spots. Yeah, and with our systems, they were able to basically tune their own setup and also now can regularly test. Our recommendation is always that you execute Mitigant against a staging or pre-production system. Yeah. With the new attacks, the discovery attacks, you can also run them against the production system because basically nothing happens. Production is not interfered. But again, it's not all attacks. Yeah. And what definitely also derives from chaos engineering is that the attack is executed. It's not a simulation. Because the simulation usually is not triggering the system who actually should pick up the attack. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's Palo Alto Prisma Cloud or if it's with Aqua Security or Orca or whatever. Yeah. This other system should pick it somehow up. If it's a simulation, you never know. And that's what our customers really appreciated. And also from the last event I was here in France, is that you can really verify your setup. Yeah? And that this is something needed because otherwise you can do that with your manual work. Yeah, but the attacks are quite sophisticated. So at the end, if you do it automatic, you don't have to do it daily. Yeah, but before every rollout or shortly after, that you know, okay, my system is withholding the attack. Yeah? And in the future, we will even put in attack or threat actors. One of them for attackers is Akira. Then you can basically filter the attacks. And when you hear, like, usually you would get your threat info. I don't know, Akira's doing attacks in Asia Pacific. Yeah, you're in Europe here. You might want to see if your systems are withholding these attacks. Yeah, and then you just execute and can have at least a good verification that they will.
Interesting that you mentioned that you conduct these attacks on simulations, and the benefit of that is the live system is the production system is untouched and safe. The other side, though, of that is, what about how accurate the simulation is compared
Again,
to?
sorry, wait. It's really attack. It's no simulation. That's why we
Oh,
usually prefer pre-production system. We have a few customers who were very confident and wanted to run it against their production system, and I said, "Sorry, guys, I know you're confident that your security and whatever you have put in is withholding it, but please execute it against the pre-production system." And unfortunately, I'm very often right because there, for instance, 4 attacks would just have taken not taken down the main system, but definitely interfered a little bit with it. Because at the end, the attacks it's not very long. It takes like 2 minutes. Yeah, and then 2 minutes later, it's already rolled back to the state before, And that's also the real big difference. Simulation, you never know how accurate, as you already asked. With the cloud attack emulation, because it's an attack.
Okay, got it, got it. The next question that comes up then is what about costs? Because then, you're running, is it an exact copy? And then are you running 2 systems? And then what about the costs for that? How do you kind of approach that so that, you're not overspending, for your security testing?
So there are 2 approaches to that. First of all, it's anyway your infrastructure. You connect Mitigant to your infrastructure, which is you don't need a second system or so. You don't need a copy or basically it's your pre-production system. You have it anyway. The cost will come per cloud account you want to secure, but usually our customers, depending on the size, we're upper mid-market until enterprise. The upper mid-market usually has 2 or 3 production accounts. Then you pay Mitigant per production account. And we also have a setup, if you're not really sure how you need it or not, we actually partner up with consultancies. So in Germany, we work with, they're also invested in us, Adesso, it's like the German Accenture. And then you can also run a few tests before with them and have a look and see how it fits into your security strategy. Because that's usually important. Very often with big entities like enterprise, we discuss with the highest cloud security architects. They usually know already that there are blind spots, and they actually ask us, okay, can I verify that, guys? Because I know what my Palo Alto Prisma Cloud does. I know what my Splunk does, but there seems like my gut feeling says there are some blind spots. Can I verify that with you? And then, yeah, sure, you can. That's why we are there.
All right, great. Yeah, that clarifies things. So yeah, you test against pre-production, not a simulation, and it's not a copy, so you don't have a separate system. It's one system. Good to clarify those important points. And I want to ask Thomas about, just as you speak to people, security, heads, CISOs. What do you see? Like, do you see how much readiness do you see for something like this attack simulation? Do they, are they more open to the idea when they hear of it first? Do you have a hard time kind of convincing them, or what are some of the challenges to get people on board to say that we need attack simulation, cloud attack simulation? Attack emulation.
Yeah, actually, and in that very moment when they understand it, they find it very useful, because actually it gives them the opportunity to do something automatically where they in former times would have used pen testers for. And pen testers normally find around about 5%. And in this enormous complexity, you don't even get this number, because pen testers are not very cloud experienced, just to say, and this makes it possible to automate it and give it to them on a level where you can simply say, yes, we integrate it into our build pipelines, and we do live scans every day or at least every week, and then we are absolutely sure that we have done everything to protect our application. And this works quite well. Yeah, even developers like that approach, because developers don't like the idea that they are responsible for security. You might have heard that there are programs, security champions in developer teams. This sometimes works, but sometimes simply you don't have the developers for it. So this is a big relief for the entire team, development and operations and security, to get everything together. This is the most important part, that you now have a team-wide approach to get security integrated into your daily processes.
All right, interesting. I was wondering if you could give us a demo, one of you, about Mitigant and how it works.
So back to Nils.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to do so. I will just make a very brief, give me a second. I hope you can see.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So let me just. So here we already have a multi-cloud system with 2 AWS instances, 2 Azure instances, and 1 Kubernetes. Yeah. I will show it on AWS, because the Kubernetes variant of the cloud attack emulation is still at this stage in development. It's a little bit more challenging, I have to say, because on AWS and Azure, we can do everything with API calls. For Kubernetes, we will go a little bit different routes there. And this part is the CSPM of Mitigant. It's just there to do attack recommendations. One thing we recognize, because we have now over 100 possibilities to attack, is that the customer gets a little bit overwhelmed, or what should I do first, right? It's usually a problem when you have big infrastructures, and especially enterprise infrastructures are huge. So as you can see here, here's S3, here's S3. So there are recommendations we basically pick up from the CSPM, and in the future we will also integrate other CSPM information just to give the customer a guidance where to start with the attacks. So for the attack information, I will start in the back, because that's usually where it's easiest to explain where do we get our attacks from. It's a MITRE attack framework we actually use, and Atlas matrices for the new AI attacks. And as you can see, we have already quite well filled, but there's also still enough work to do. So the MITRE attack framework is quite an exhaustive framework, and as you know, there are newer attacks coming to life on a almost daily basis. How do we do that? Well, basically, Kenny, our CTO, is analyzing the attack, and then building the bricks of the attack within our system. And talking of bricks, these bricks, we call it attack action. You can execute these singularity or combined. If I open this, for instance, as you can see, there's the attack ID. If I switch on that, then you will directly get the information from the MITRE attack framework. So we basically also give transparency to our customers where the attack is coming from, what the attack does. And what we can do, or what also our customers can do, is build attack scenarios. The management ones are from us, and the customized one, the customer can put together themselves. I talked about the ransomware attack before. Let me just run the scenario. So in this scenario, we establish a new user and then disable the database locking. And with this step of disabling the database locking, a system you have in place who should pick that up should ring. So that system should be triggered. And whether you get the call from the SOC or you have informed your SOC before, hey guys, we're running a test, don't panic. It's not a real ransomware. We even have requests from some of our customers, CISOs, who want to schedule these attacks at night, and then just want to see if next morning they get a report that there was some suspicious activities. So you can even test your, let's say, processes and setups internally if they are picking up an attack like that. So now we have here the report, and as you can see, that was successfully executed. So in this infrastructure, this attack would be possible. We always describe the steps of the attack. We describe the remediation. As I said, we clean up the what's up, so that's why we are actually collecting then the evidence. But the most information or most important information is actually these attack detection Sigma roles we hand out, because this is the part where you fine-tune the other system. You might have to adapt it to the code of the other system, but usually Sigma roles you can take as a good basis. And what we also do is this attack was executed once against this pass, but we also show other possible vulnerable resources here, and these should be also then changed after the attack. So,
all right.
And I think, I know it will roll back, but let me just push the recover attack button, and then you can see it. like that was also one of the, let's say, wow effects some customers had, because it might be still a little bit thinking that in the cloud it's hard to recover something, but we always said it has to be cleaned up, and customer environment, whatever environment it is, should not be vulnerable. So now it's rolled back, and you basically will see it in the logs, but other than that, it's not really visible that there was an attack.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's it in a nutshell, very briefly.
All right. All right. Very interesting. I like the attack path analysis that shows all of the related, parts of the system at risk, and like you said, this attack detection looks really interesting. I saw something on your website called attackers code, a phrase that I found really interesting. Could you talk a bit more about that? And this attack detection, is that the part in your product that shows this attacker's code? Is that the same thing, or are they different?
Yeah, that's the same thing. And basically, we craft these attack bricks, and with this code, we then execute the attack. In the future, we will also make it possible that our customers can do them themselves. Yeah. At the moment, let's say if a customer says, "Oh, I need this attack pattern," it takes around about 1 week to put that in, and usually per month we are adding 2 to 4 new attacks. Yeah, and as I said, these are just the attack bricks. Yeah, and then like in Lego, you can make something completely different out of it. At the moment, we are even thinking about multi cloud attacks. Yeah, so something starts in AWS, then goes over to Azure, because this is also scenarios we see there and out in the real life, and it's I think not many people have that in mind, that even an attacker can move in between cloud systems to attack you.
Interesting. Last couple of questions as we wind down. For Thomas, I wanted to ask about automation. And, Nils mentioned earlier about that with compliance, a lot of it is done manually. And, which means that there's a lot of scope for automation and just making things easier, easier for the security and compliance teams. Thomas, would you like to comment on that? How does Mitigant help with automating and simplifying security and compliance workflows?
Yeah, if you look into the example Niels gave, so you have vulnerable identity and access management and the vulnerable S3 bucket. Creating and removing S3 buckets is a typical task nobody cares about in a developer team. And here you see if you create a new S3 buckets and forget to include it into the monitoring or the logging, or if you see that there is, it can be disabled, this monitoring and logging, then you have definitely a vulnerability. And we have seen in the last years a lot of breaches of privacy data, which resulted from S3 buckets. So you have customer data in S3 buckets, or even more secret or private data in that. And this is definitely something the attackers are aiming for. And if we can protect this data in S3 buckets, we have a big step forward for protecting the customer's privacy. So this means this is the priority number one. And what we see in DevOps systems is, in the early stages of DevOps, we never cared about security because they have been in-house systems. And now we have systems in the public clouds with all this data. So it's important to make it really easy and smooth, that you really can integrate it into your daily reporting processes. That's a big advantage, and there's no other tool at the moment who is on a level that it can compare to Mitigant.
Yeah, and Thomas, you also mentioned you're a big fan of DevSecOps, and that talks a lot about identifying vulnerabilities early on as soon as you can, and really resolving them as soon as possible. Could you talk a bit more on that and how Mitigant follows some of those principles of early detection and how to remediate those things sooner?
Yeah, in DevSecOps, you have a lot of points where Mitigant is absolutely valuable. So scanning configurations on the operation side is really part of DevSecOps, and monitoring and alerting is also part of this. So if you see it in the moment, people are overwhelmed by the number of tools in Kubernetes or in the cloud, and then they build something. Yeah, we have whatever the nice monitoring tool, but then effectively, yes, and does it trigger an alert if something goes wrong? Oh, we are not as far as we wanted to be, because you see typically understaffed teams with security. So this helps a lot of getting the entire loop done, and not only partially scanning. Yeah, we scanned it. Yeah, but where does the result of the scan go? No, we don't have finished the monitoring yet, because this is a big pain, and every monitoring system is different. And Mitigant helps to remind you that there is something in your system which definitely needs your attention.
All right. As we wrap up, I wanted to ask you guys, as you think of Mitigant, as you think of this space of cloud attack surface management or CSPM, what's on the horizon? What's coming up over the next year or so? What are you guys building? What do you see the space moving towards? Any thoughts as you look ahead?
So, like, when I look ahead, I do see that some parts of AI will also revolutionize that space. Yeah, because CSPM have a lot of information, and most customers get really overwhelmed with that. Yeah, and as LLMs help or AI can help to boil down, because at the end, as a customer, you want to know which 20% of the issues do I have to fix now to be 80% more secure tomorrow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And something like that we will also put into our thoughts, especially with the attacks. We started already with this threat actors, because that's important when you are in a certain industry. Then that means that industry usually has some, let's say, bad fanboys. And you want to know when these guys are striking your, let's say, competition at the moment, and you know when they are with you, right? Or maybe they're already working on you. And these sort of information we would also like to put more in our system, that we can proactively warn our customer and say, hey guys, we see here from your CSPM, there's a really lot of vulnerabilities. We see that threat actor coming in from the threat intel. Hey guys, you really should at least run one time security play day, for instance, where you check that in your system. And that's something we will definitely put in. And as I said, multi-cloud is also a high priority on our roadmap to have these systems covered.
All right. Thomas, what about you? What's on your mind as you look ahead?
Yeah, connecting all the things you already have seen, we can connect IAM and F3, and there are more things which could go connected. So multi-cloud is, yeah, you don't have in mind that your multi-cloud accounts are somehow connected. You also could extend it to Kubernetes in a very general level, that you have things. Yes, you are running a container with privileges, and it is it has been started by a privileged account. So there are a lot of privileges lying around, which is not necessary. Other things in the future, we might look into the containers and look, yeah, is this really necessary, or can we flatten the container? So there are a lot of things to do where we can simply connect things to get a better picture and then to do a better protection on that. And this is a big job, because actually we know that all these connections, there are more connections than actually configuration points itself. And it's virtually impossible for the average operations people or cloud administrator to find all these things. And so this must be automated, and we will help them to go through the top 10 or top 20 vulnerabilities or attack vectors they can avoid. This is a definite target in the future, to get more and more connected attack path and to try to avoid them.
All right. Wow, really interesting thoughts there as we close. Nils mentioning about the rise of AI and how it's going to play a role in cloud security, and Thomas talking about multi-cloud and just connected devices and networks and privileges that are lying around unused. Those are going to be some of the things that they're thinking of for the next year or two. It was really an insightful conversation here about how do you stay protected in the cloud? How do you get your cloud security posture right? And quite a unique approach that we saw as well from Mitigant about cloud attack emulation. I got the word wrong a lot of times, but I'm getting it right now.
No worries.
Emulation. And so I hope you guys found, listeners and viewers, I hope you guys found this insightful and interesting. Go and check out what they're doing at the website mitigant.io, and get in touch with them if you'd like to know how to secure your cloud stack. Nils and Thomas, before you guys go, just a last question for you. If not for your job in technology, what would you be doing? What would be your alternate career?
Yeah, for
I'm
me,
doing a lot. Nils.
you first this time, Thomas.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of cycling here around in the area of Berlin, and looking into the latest developments of physics, but it's kind of hopeless.
Okay, neat.
So
How do you cycle? Or how long do you go?
Normally I'm cycling every second day, 40 kilometers, just because of the nice area here.
Yeah, that's a good walk. All right. And
Yeah,
Nils?
I would also definitely do more cycling if I could. One of the things I really like also, I like traveling. Yeah,
Mm.
and other cultures. That's something I actually have the opportunity with Mitigant see very often, because we have to go to events to connect with the right persons, and I appreciate that. And if I not would do Mitigant, I would still be traveling. Yeah, most likely with a little bit more time for cafes and beaches, but
Mhm. Neat.
might become. I mean, retirement is just 25 years away. Right?
Mhm. Neat. Yeah, that sounds like a fun plan. Great talking to you guys. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Rain. Yeah. Have a good day. Bye.
All right. And thanks to all of our listeners and viewers as well for tuning in. And we'll see you on the next episode.